Hi viewers, this is Salahuddin with lecture number 24. Continuing to the previous lecture, in the previous lecture we talked about the circumstances that led to the personal rule of George III. In today's lecture we will talk about the measure that George III took and established his personal rule. In the previous lecture, we talked about in detail about George III, and continuing to the same lecture, now we are going to deal the second part of the George III's era or the George III's times. So, in that significance, now we are dealing the second part of George III's era, and that is measure to establish his personal rule. Uh, Previously, we talked about the circumstances, like how the situation was made in such a way that his personal rule was established. Now we will talk about the intentional measures that he took and established his personal rule. So what measure he took to establish his personal rule? In that regard, the first measure that he took was the resignation of William Pitt the Elder. William Pitt the Elder, he was the prime minister after Butte. William Pitt, why we call it William Pitt the Elder? Because after William Pitt the Elder, his son come on the throne after him, who is known as Pitt the Younger. In this regard, to differentiate between both Pitts, to this one, the historians label him as Pitt the Elder, while the afterward Pitt is called as Pitt the Younger, who was the son of Pitt the Elder. So how his resignation took place, which helped in establishing personal rule. Like in 1761, when he was prime minister, he wanted to declare war against Spain because Britain had trade rivalries with Spain. Therefore, to defeat the Spain in order to achieve naval supremacy as well as trade supremacy, therefore the war was inevitable for the Britain. But when George the III came to know about that Pitt wants to declare war against Spain, he all of a sudden and abruptly turned down his suggestion to declare war against Spain. Thus, when Pitt came to know that his suggestion or his command has been turned down by the King George III, he could not bear this humiliation and tabled his resignation to George III. Thus, his resignation helped in establishing personal rule, because Pitt was a great leader as well as a great statesman. Therefore, resignation of William Pitt the Elder helped in establishing personal rule of George III. The second important point or the measure that he took was the end of the 7 Years' War. When George III saw that Butte could not win war, he stopped the war. He did it by bribery, patronage, and win over the members of the parliament. So this 7 years war, which was part in 1756 to 1763, in this war, when George III came to know that the war could not be won easily, therefore could not be won easily, Therefore, he wanted to dismiss the Butte, who was the prime minister after Pitt the Elder. And the 7 years war that we talked in detail in the previous lecture was a war to be declared intentionally by the Britain against the other trade rivals. In that significance, they took a vote of confidence from the parliament either to declare war or to stop it. When the bill was proposed in the parliament, the members of the parliament were of the opinion that the war should not be declared and it should be wind up as soon as possible. Wind it up as soon as possible because the members of the parliament were bribed, they were given patronages, etc., and such all evil practices are put in practice by the George III in order to avoid the 7 years war, because the war was already knocking at the alarms bells for the defeat for the Great Britain. Therefore, it was really important to stop this war. So this to avoid such humiliation as a result of the 7 year wars, the war was stopped, which helped in a kind of respect for the George III. So this end of the years war was really helpful to establish his personal rule. The second important measure that he took was the organization of the King's Friends Party. Earlier, there were two parties, the Whig and the Tories. They were often in conflict with each other because they were different in policies, they were different in ideologies. So thus the government could not run smoothly when the members from both of the parties were in government or were in cabinet. So George III, taking advantage of this division or this conflict between the two parties, he devised a new party which was called as the King's Friend Party, and those came from King's Friends Party. They were loyal to King, and they were of the opinion that the king should be real, and king those friends of king were bribed. They were given titles, and all other such measures were taken through which they could win the favor of the king. So this party of the king was, we can call it the kitchen cabinet, because those were the cabinet of very close people of the king who were who could not dare to disagree with the king in any policy or any other thing. So this organization of the King's Party was another important measure that he took to establish his personal rule. The fourth important measure that he took was the use of bribery and the royal patronage. This practice was earlier practiced by the Whig Party, because they were landlord and the middle class people who were newly rich. So this use of bribery and royal patronage helped the king to pass any bill in the parliament. So passing a bill from the parliament was really a good news for the king George III, because no bill could be passed earlier without paying bribery or greasing the palm. So George III, taking advantage of this bribery, and he passed many important bills which could favor him in the coming time. The fifth important point was appointments of ministers by the king. Uh, Now is the people cooperation was really important for King George III, and people were of the opinion that the king should be a king in real, the king should be obeyed in all aspects, and the ministers should be chosen by the king. And taking, bearing in mind these views of the people, King George III took advantage and perceived is the support of the people, and he started appointing ministers by his own choice, which later on helped him greatly in passing the bills as well as supporting the king in every possible way. Uh, the sixth important point was a dismissal of Butte. Uh, Butte was his teacher, as we talked in the previous lecture, and he was his teacher. He had inflicted huge influence on George III. But when he came to know the fact that Butte has a kind of intimate relation with his mother, so it made him unpopular among the people. And when the people came to know of this fact that Butte has a kind of relation with his mother, so he had no other way except dismissing Butte. So this dismissal of people to dismissal of Butte to avoid the rage and wrath of the people, he could he could succeed in establishing his personal rule by avoiding the rage or the opposition of the people, because the king was in a kind of divine qualities at that time, and the king should be even respected. The king should be kind of the king the king was given a kind of divine qualities at that time. So the people could not bear his king, where his mother could have a kind of relation with another person who is common in a layman or even among from the subjects. Thus, the dismissal of the Butte on the pretext that he had a relation with his mother helped to win the support of the people. The last important point was establishment of the ministry of the Lord North. Uh, Lord North, 1770 to 1782, he was the minister. He was declared, or he was assigned the ministerialships at that time. And this establishment of his ministry helped or supported the kings in every possible way. And Lord North would support the king, and he would suppress all those peoples who would against the king, or from the members from the parliament, from either both from both the Tory as well as the Whig. So those members would be dealt with the iron hands when it comes to opposing the king. So Lord North was really playing in the hands of the king. So these five measures that he took and establishing his personal rule really helped him. So recapping those 7 points, resignation of William Pitt the Elder was the first measure. Secondly, end of the 7 Years' War. And thirdly, organization of the King's Friends Party, use of bribery and the royal patronage, appointments of ministers by the king, and sixthly, dismissal of Butte, and seventhly, establishment of the ministry of Lord North. So in this lecture we dealt the second part of the previous lecture. In the third part, we will talk about the third important aspect of the George III's reign. So thank you so much for watching the video, and do not forget that we are going to cover all the aspects, all the important questions that are related with the British history and on the examination point of view. So thank you so much.